I have no more than 2 or 3 weeks to obtain the necessary gold. I have to ride my previous streak hard to the very end, and hope it's enough if this is the place. Right now I don't have time for hunting and pecking. Shawn Pomrenke gambled everything on a rusting dredge out on the harsh Bering Sea. The cost of bringing the forgotten beast back to life was close to $1 million. There was no plan. It was a final attempt. It struck more than gold on its debut night. This is the tale of how a $800,000 wagger on a piece of trash revealed the exorbitant cost of maintaining dominance. The resurrection of the $1 million. Let's be honest. On the ropes was Shawn Pomrenke. He appears to be Mr. Gold, the Bering Sea's undeniable champion. However, he was drowning in debt behind the scenes. The figures are astounding. The Tomcod claim, a vast 1,000-acre expanse of prospective seafloor, came first. The payments were due, and the cost to manage that ground was an impressive $1.5 million. The entire situation is destroyed if one is missed. Furthermore, he had negotiated a handshake to purchase his own father's share in the family's inland mining business. An additional burden worth millions of dollars. He wasn't merely digging to make money. To keep his head above water, he was digging. The Christine Rose, his renowned dredge, was a reliable workhorse. However, it was insufficient. He needed to take a big step. He required a monster. The Myrtle Irene was the answer to it. Music. If I want to make all these payments, I have to get the Myrtle operating. It wasn't a dredge. It was a joke. On the beach is a rust bucket. For the majority of Nome residents, it was just scrap metal waiting to happen. Where others saw deterioration, Shawn saw opportunity. After striking a deal, he invested $800,000 SOF, his own funds, as well as whatever he could borrow to bring this beast back to life. Everything would be defined by this gamble. He would be bankrupt if it didn't work. Rebuilding was a maddening, compulsive endeavor. Patching holes and rotating wrenches wasn't the only thing involved. Shawn used his years of hard-earned skill to completely revamp the machine. The initial design was a complete failure. The excavator operator was essentially digging blind since the wash plant, where the gold is extracted, was constructed too high. Therefore, they cut it off and lowered the entire thing as their first action. A huge operation on a monster of steel. The master stroke followed. He was aware that the outdated design was physically washing money back into the ocean by losing valuable gold. He created a second parallel cell box as his answer. It was a wise decision. A safety net put in to capture every last bit of color. Every screen, pump, and hose was disassembled, reassembled, and strengthened. The work was not a repair. It was a resurrection. The night finally arrived. Was it all worth the tears, sweat, and blood? Won't we find out in the morning? On its first trip, the refurbished Myrtle Irene set sail. There was only the strained, focused stillness of a team that knew their jobs were on the line, no champagne or jubilation. They steamed out to one of Shawn's old honey holes, which is known to contain gold, but is located deeper than most rigs could ever hope to reach, more than 30 feet. The first enormous scoop of the excavator plunged into the black water as the pumps screamed to life. The first miracle was what followed. The dredging was effective. It not only functioned but did so without a hitch. Something breaks on the majority of shakedown runs. An engine overheats, a belt slips, and a hose blows. The Myrtle purred, however, as if it had been operating for years. It devoured through the seabed for hours without encountering any issues. The excavator began removing heavy, thick clay layers as the night went on. That is the sticky substance that traps gold, the pay dirt. Like a tiger in a cage, Shawn walked the deck, listening to every sound and observing every gauge. The second miracle followed. One of the staff looked into the cellar box, and there it was, gold. It wasn't much, yet under the strong deck lights, the color was real and unmistakable. The layout was effective. They were trapping the gold. The $800,000 monster did not malfunction for a single night shift. It consumed the ocean floor. Perfectly processing the dirt, it began to capture gold. At last, the team was able to breathe. It was a successful gamble. Indeed, it was only beginning. The Myrtle Irene wasn't a lemon, as that first night demonstrated. However, millions of debts cannot be paid off in a single excellent night. The real test was about to begin. Enduring the harsh Bering Sea day in and day out, you have to look past the gold and consider the enormous expense of just turning the key in order to comprehend the pressure cooker these miners live in. Drowning in debt, buried in gold. It's simple to assume that these men are instantaneously wealthy when they bring out a jar of gold. Here's the simple reality, though. Before the gold even emerges from the earth, almost every dollar of it has already been spent. Whether you're finding gold or not, the operational costs of operating a top-tier dredge on the Bering Sea are a constant financial burden. You can become broke in this game more quickly than anywhere else on the planet. Friend, we're making gold. What are your thoughts? Maybe we'll get our money back. Yes. First, let's talk about the most fundamental cost: fuel. With enormous diesel engines powering everything from the excavator to the water pumps to the generators that keep the lights on, a dredge such as the Myrtle Irene or the Christine Rose functions as a floating factory. These engines suck fuel rather than sip it. An operation can need hundreds or even thousands of gallons of diesel on a good day. Fuel is particularly costly in a community like Nome, Alaska, where everything must be hauled in. The amount of money spent on fuel each day can easily reach the thousands, and occasionally even the tens of thousands. Every day, that's money disappearing into thin air. Maintenance comes next. The worst adversary of a machine is the Bering Sea. Everything that comes into contact with the salt water corrodes, including the delicate wiring and the steel hull. The actual pay soil is extremely abrasive. Consider it: tons of rock, gravel, and sand are being sucked up by you. That substance continuously erodes every component of the system, much like sandpaper. Under pressure, hoses burst. Steel screens are ripped to pieces. Additionally, costly water pumps are ruined by sucking up rocks. The expense of replacing a single hydraulic hose is more than a few $100s. It entails ending the entire business. You lose hundreds of dollars in potential gold every minute the dredge isn't operating. It's true what they say: if something isn't broken in mining, it will soon be. To keep the business running, a sizable portion of every season's earnings is promptly reinvested in repairs and replacement parts. Looking stunning. A ton of rock and gold. To reach my target, I must consume 200 ounces. Disgusting filth. It appears to be quite promising. The human cost comes next. A dredge cannot be operated by one person. Divers, mechanics, excavator operators, deckhands, and a competent and trustworthy crew are all necessary. These jobs don't pay minimum wage. These are hard, risky jobs, and you have to pay well to get people who will put in 18-hour stints in sub-freezing temperatures. In addition, there is the logistical challenge of transporting all those people and supplies to a far-off town like Nome, the expense of insurance to cover the enormous risks, and the cost of food to feed a ravenous team for months. The total comes to a huge payroll. And then there's the price of the ground itself, you understand. The right to mine a portion of the seafloor can cost millions of dollars, as demonstrated by the Tom Cod claim. It is not a one-time charge. These are frequently leases in which the claim owner receives a portion of each ounce of gold you locate. Shawn has been leasing land to other people and keeping a portion of their earnings for years. Although it's a wise commercial decision, it demonstrates that even the ground itself has a high cost. All of this adds up to an operating budget that can reach the millions for a single brief summer season, including gasoline, repairs, crew, and claims. These men are so fixated because of this. It's survival, not simply greed. You can't just have a terrific season when the expenses are so high. Monster cleanups are necessary. Legendary hauls that cover all expenses and more. Miners like Shawn are forced to take enormous risks, venture into unfamiliar territory, and follow their instincts because they are under pressure to locate those prizes. When that intuition is correct, the outcomes can be absolutely astounding. The halls of mythology tip the balances. Jackpots are king in the high-stakes world of Bering Sea gold mining, but consistency is crucial. With consistent daily cleanups, a miner can make a living. But you need those fabled game-changing hauls that become the buzz of the town if you want to develop an empire. Shawn Pomrenke didn't play it safe to become known as Mr. Gold. It was earned by his extraordinary capacity to find himself in the midst of a cyclone that was plated in gold. One of the most striking instances of this occurred in Storm Ravaged, Episode 8 of Season 9. A violent storm had just battered the ship, scuffing the bottom and rendering identified hotspots untrustworthy. Shawn took a risk by maneuvering the Christine Rose into an uncharted territory, as other crews struggled. He was searching for a concentrated, deep pay streak that might have been discovered during the storm. It was an outright gamble that paid off handsomely. They were on the best ground of their lives for one amazing, non-stop 24 hours. The crew was taken aback when the gold box was eventually extracted. A startling $155,000 was the final weigh-in for that one day. That was worth more than $287,000. Consider that. He earned more in a single day than most individuals do in 5 years. It's the kind of discovery that instantly transforms a losing season into a winning one. The Myrtle Irene, his reborn monster, is far more powerful than even that. The machine started producing on a scale that no one has ever seen in Nome once he had it adjusted. We constructed the second SL box from the ground up. It's enormous. We intend to catch a lot more gold in this way. The Myrtle provided a haul that cemented its legendary position in one of the most memorable cleanups in the show's history. They conducted a cleanup after a successful run on a fertile area of the Tom Code claim, yielding 276 ounces of gold, more than 17 pounds of the yellow substance, valued at over $500,000. It was a huge sign for the $800,000 bet, demonstrating that the new design was a game changer rather than merely a functional one. There's more to these enormous hauls than chance. Decades of experience have led to them. Shawn's talent to read the ocean floor is nearly mystical. He can tell where the heaviest gold has been deposited over thousands of years, by currents in ancient riverbeds. In order to identify the most likely sites, he uses drill logs and historical data in conjunction with his keen research and intuition. Shawn is doing geological surgery, while other miners are just sucking gravel at random. He is rewarded with the enormous cleanups, the times when the enormous risks and operating expenses are justified. They are the paychecks that support the entire empire, settle the multi-million-dollar bills, and solidify his position as Nome's unchallenged ruler. You have a target on your back, of course, when you are the king. Making enemies, pushing boundaries, and perhaps getting into trouble with the authorities are all part of being dominant in a high-stakes game like gold mining. The longer the shadow cast, the greater the success. Mr. Gold isn't all ceremonial handshakes and extensive cleanups since he is Shiwaka. Everyone wants to take what you have or try to bring you down while you're in the lead. A far more nuanced picture of Shawn Pomrenke is painted by his tenure as King of Nome, which has been characterized by acrimonious rivalries, legal issues, and contentious commercial dealings. Finding gold isn't the only goal here. It's about the struggles you must endure to maintain it. The protracted, bitter struggle between Pomrenke and the Kelly family has been the most notorious dispute in Bering Sea Gold's history. This wasn't a staged drama for the cameras, truly. A real knockdown drag-out feud ensued. Claim jumping, or at least the accusation of it, was at the center of the dispute. The Reaper, the Kelly family's dredge, was frequently positioned directly on the edge of Shawn's mining cuts, on the Tom Cod claim. This was especially true of the combative Chris Kelly. Although it was technically permitted by the lease, it was a grave violation of mining protocol. The Kellys were jumping in to take advantage of Shawn's effort and money spent identifying the hot locations. Seasons passed before the strain finally erupted at Nome Harbor. Before they both ended up grappling in the frigid water, a yelling match between Shawn and Chris Kelly turned into a full-fledged physical altercation, in which Shawn traded blows with Chris's brother Andy. Fans were split at the event, which led to the police being summoned, and it revealed the untamed, primal essence of the Nome tournament. What happened to Shawn? In addition to his on-screen conflicts, Shawn has had a number of significant legal issues in the real world. He has had several run-ins with the law for driving under the influence. Just like many people who lead high-stakes, high-stress lives. These were not small-scale traffic violations. These were grave accusations that might result in jail time and large fines. The tremendous strain that comes with his position is made clear by these off-screen issues. It is evident that the never-ending race against the clock, handling multi-million-dollar debts, and supervising large workers all cause ongoing stress, which can occasionally manifest in harmful ways. Then there is his economic empire itself, which is problematic. Shawn is a landlord in addition to being a miner. He has the authority to lease portions of the enormous Tom Cod claim, one of the richest tracts of land accessible, to his rivals. He receives a large portion of each ounce of gold they discover in return. It's fantastic from a business standpoint. Even when his own dredges are parked, he still makes money. However, it portrays him to his adversaries as a cruel tyrant who demands tribute from all other members of the realm. His combined status as a fierce rival and landlord makes for a complex and frequently stressful dynamic on the water, which stokes animosity and solidifies his reputation as a cunning and occasionally ruthless businessman. For many years, Shawn's ultimate goal was to construct a giant dredge, a specially designed craft so big and strong that it would dwarf all other dredges and Nomes. He and his father formed a new business named Pomrenke Mining, LLC. In order to realize this objective, through a complicated cooperation with a group of investors from Texas. At first glance, the agreement appeared straightforward. Millions of dollars would be invested to finance the building, and the Pomrenkes would donate their valuable assets and knowledge. But what followed was a nightmare for the company. Insider reports and court filings claimed that the relationship turned into a hostile takeover. Shawn and his father were lawfully removed from their own firm when the investors, led by a man named John Bayer, allegedly corrupted the new company's board of directors. Then the last startling maneuver. Chapter 7 bankruptcy was filed by the new management. The bit that will make your head spin is right here. With more than $3 million in assets and less than $400,000 in liabilities, the company was apparently solvent at the time of the bankruptcy filing. Why then would a sound business be compelled to go out of business? It looked like a spectacular business coup. Due to the transfer, the Pomrenkes were forced to look at their assets, including the flagship Christine Rose, which was involved in a legal dispute. Shawn learned a hard lesson. The realm of high finance was a new kind of ocean, with predators he never anticipated. Even though he was the undeniable king of the Nome coastline, this was more than just a botched business transaction. Everything he and his father had ever created was in danger of being destroyed by this utter betrayal. The massive dredge disaster had disastrous human and financial repercussions. There are rumors in the close-knit mining community that Shawn was defrauded of up to $2 million during the entire incident. He had entrusted outside financial gurus to manage the corporate aspect of his plan, which was to construct the largest dredge on the sea, and by doing this, he made himself totally vulnerable to their moves. This controversy reveals a serious weakness in his defenses. He is a genius at reading the ground and a master of machinery, but he was unprepared for the world of intricate legal contracts and corporate power struggles. The entire catastrophe served as a costly and agonizing public education about the need of due diligence. Instead of being his greatest accomplishment, the giant dredge turned into his worst financial nightmare. His greatest personal dispute with his own father was exacerbated by this time of extreme business strain. Their already tense relationship was further worsened by the stress of the bankruptcy and the subsequent finger-pointing. The handshake agreement for Shawn to purchase the family's inland mine resulted in a sour argument. The straightforward family pact turned into another battlefield, with millions at stake, and their mutual confidence destroyed by the investor scandal. Of all the scandals, this one is arguably the most devastating. A battle with your own father and mentor is a distinct kind of wound, even though fights with rivals like the Kellys are normal in a competitive setting. It demonstrates how Shawn's unrelenting desire cost him not only money, but also the relationships he had to give up in the process. He paid more than just money and risked everything to maintain his position at the top. The true question, though, is this: was it worthwhile? Tell us. Remember to like and subscribe as well.